do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Happy 2026. I think to get started, I guess we had a few little um I can't think of the word in Spanish. Some things that we had to get done. One was just to make sure that we approved the notes from our last meeting, which did. Now I'm trying to think, did those get sent out? Did everybody get to look at those? Okay. If there was no objections, then um do we have to take a vote to approve them? I'm looking at you, Kat, but you can't tell.
I think so. I think that's always good practice. Just
Okay, great.
I'll
And
move to approve the notes.
thanks, Jane.
I
Also,
agree.
great. All right, everybody in favor, then if you could just like raise your hand, we'll move forward. Perfect. Two. Great. All right, I think those are approved. Thank you. And then do we have anybody that is here for public comment, Kat? No. Okay, great. Awesome. We're moving forward. So maybe if we could put the slides up, Kat, that have the agenda on them, if that works, and maybe in our grounding slides, that would be helpful.
yeah, I will put the grounding slides up. Sorry, just working with a couple different screens. One moment.
I'm solo parenting tonight, so there's probably going to be a few like people yelling down at me about their unlimited screen time. All right, awesome. Thanks, Kat. Okay. So awesome. Welcome everyone. We've got our so as far as a note taker, do we have that taken care of? Are we going to try to use the YouTube notes? Okay. Wonderful. Great.
Yeah, unless anyone wants to take some additional notes just to add some texture and detail, but we found out that that function works pretty well, so it's nice to have.
Perfect. Great. Yeah, thanks Jane for taking them last time. It was nice to have your notes. Great. So I was just thinking that it might be helpful for us to ground ourselves at the top of every meeting, given that we meet quarterly, to just revisit the duties of the Climate Crisis Response Committee so that we have a framework for this like 90 minutes together. So maybe we can go on to the next slide. I just wanted to read everybody and have us feel like centered in this. So there's three kind of main duties for our committee. One is to receive regular reports and data from the district staff on the current status and then future planned implementation of the policy goals and directives, including the impact of the policy implementation on our frontline communities. The second goal is to determine whether such status and implementation are consistent with the identified goals of the policy. So that's our job to make sure that those are in alignment. And then the third duty that we have is to share written findings with the board on at least an annual basis. And also part of that is to make any recommendations. So we have a plan to submit our annual report in April. And then part of our last meeting, we talked with Eddie about the possibility of providing more of a frequent but like small update so that the board kind of keeps the climate work top of mind. So moving forward, what we were going to try is I'm going to send Eddie like a few bullet points from our meetings just so that that way they have us kind of like in their mind as they're moving about the work that they're doing. And so, given that we're just to ground us also in the objectives of the policy, since it's, a large policy, but really it's these kind of two pieces. One is emissions reduction. So our PPS's goal is to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030, which now that we're in 2026, that feels like it's, around the corner. And then also to reach net zero emissions by 2040. If you're familiar with the policy, the emissions tracking includes kind of really like the vehicles and also the building use, building energy use from natural gas and electricity. Um, and I know that there's some tracking of waste disposal as well. And then the second part of the policy is thinking about engagement, resilience, and wellness. So the districts will take steps to prepare schools for the effects of climate change and will ensure staff and students learn about and engage in climate solutions, climate resiliency, and climate justice practices. Um, so just like maybe stopping back there, Kat, I don't know if anybody has any like thoughts or reactions or questions. But I know for me, it's helpful just to have this sort of like, what is the purpose of us coming together quarterly? And just to make sure that we're kind of coming back to these like truisms about our work. So does anybody have any questions just about these two pieces? Shannon. Yeah.
Yes, forgive me if this was already stated at some point, but regarding 50% emission reduction by 2030 using the 2018-2019 school year as a baseline, at 2026, how far have we come towards that goal versus how far do we need to go?
That's a great question. I'll be providing a small update about that a little bit later with our staff report out. Sneak preview is that with us modernizing our 3 remaining high schools to fully electric, and with the assumption that PGE and Pacific Power are doing their part on decarbonizing the grid, we actually should be able to meet that goal, which is wild and exciting. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's a great question and definitely something that we're excited to share about.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions that come up for folks? Okay, great. I won't like go through and read it every time, but I think we might have a slide just so that we can make sure that we're staying true to these and we're keeping them in mind as we go about our meetings. Just thank you for humoring me. I think it's helpful. Thank you. Thanks, Jane. All right. So just to keep us in mind too of our like kind of deliverables, and some of these are, not exactly stated in the duties of the committee, but something that we I think have been interested in. Is one will be our annual report, which is required. Given that the board presentation is on the 14th, our goal will be to get it the final draft by March 31st. We've got our amazing student survey that I think we'll hear an update on, which I know the board was excited to hear about last year. Some communication support, and maybe we can take some time to talk a little bit more about that later in the meeting. And maybe we'll hear some updates about the climate newsletter as well. And then these like thought partnerships. So if there's anything that anybody is feeling inspired to work on and has interested in, or from these meetings, if you feel like there's something you want to take on and provide insight in to or support on, then I think we can just like reach out to Kat or myself and see what we can get done. Great. So I think we're going to move on to our next agenda item then.
I think next up is the student report.
Great.
So Alma and Leah, if you want to share anything, you've got some time and space to do so, and I'm happy to share my screen as well if there's anything you'd like me to share.
Thanks, Kat. We just wanted to start by talking about the student survey, as Alyssa mentioned. And so we just met with Kat just earlier today about the student survey and kind of details, timelines, etc. We decided that April would be a really good time to put the survey out. It's Earth Month. There's going to be some PSEF events, which will help with outreach to students. It'll give us a good amount of time to prep everything so that we can really put it out a little more aggressively than we did last year and hopefully get some more responses. So if everybody's on board with that, then the plan is going to be for April. In the meantime, in order to prep it to go out, we need to update some of the links in there, like the newsletter sign up link, the dashboard link. And then potentially we have a little intro at the top that's like, this is why we're collecting this data. This is what we're going to do with it. So if we decide there's anything else we would want to use this data for, especially now that we're going to be able to compare it to last year's data, we will want to put that in the little blurb at the top. I don't personally have anything specific that I would want to use it for, but if any of you guys have any ideas, we'd love to hear that. Yeah, Leah, am I saying it right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, the second thing we just wanted to share a little bit about was an update on the PSEF money and PSEF projects at our schools. So at my school, there's been a kind of like collaboration going on between schools. The Clean Air Club and the Eco Action Club from Wells are collaborating with the Environmental Justice class, not club, from Lincoln to put on this summit near the end of the year. And I know that PPS as a district, there's a climate summit. Kat, do you know if that's happening this year? Is that happening this year?
Something it'll be a little different. So we're not going to be able to do like a full summit anymore. It'll be a student showcase where we get to like showcase the student projects that they're working on versus like what we did in the past, which was more of like a connective kind of summit day for students. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think that's kind of nice to hear actually, because a lot of the students in these like at Lincoln and at Wells really wanted to do a summit, and with our pooled money we have around $20,000, so we're gonna do that I think sometime in April, around Earth Month or Earth Day as well. And then there's another team at my school still working on getting reusable utensils. That's kind of going slower. There's like some hoops that have to be jumped through. But other than that, the PSF money is like being really well utilized. And we're also working with community organizations to like do talks at our wellness fair, at our week of action at our school. So yeah, it's going.
Yeah, and for Cleveland, we are still working on our composting initiative from last year. Similarly to the reusable utensils, there's a lot of barriers to it, and I think it's probably some of the same barriers. But it's been a little bit hard to get that off the ground. But we're also working on incentivizing people to use reusable cups and thermoses. And later in the year, we're hopefully going to have an event where students and families can come and make mason bee houses to take home. So that would be really fun if we are able to put that together in time for the season when you're supposed to put them up. Yeah, that's what we're working on. And so we're gonna have a little bit of time for people to like have questions or comments. And during that time, if anybody wants to help us process the data from the student survey, so that would be in May, please pipe up so we can write your names down, because there is a lot of open-ended questions. And so depending on how many of those we keep for this year, it is going to be a lot of responses to go through. Did you have something to add, Leah?
Yeah, I just thought of something while you were talking. One of the things we're doing with our PSF money is like holding an environmental justice night, and we're having a bunch of stations. And so I'm just pitching this to like a bunch of people, but one of the things like we're gonna have is like a sustainable like habits or like activities. So we're like teaching how to like darn socks or stitch up clothes. And if anyone has like a skill that they could teach, I think another one is like making farmer's cheese, then I'd love to hear from you and maybe have you at our environmental justice night.
That's so awesome. I love that.
That's super fun. And if you share flyers for those things, then we'll make sure to get them posted on our website. A quick question, Leah, is the Environmental Justice Night just for students, or is it like a community facing event?
I would love to have it be a community event, but I don't know if our school would allow that with like, yeah, I know. I mean, I think families of students could come, but let me check on that because I would love for it to be a community event.
Yeah, just curious because that'll like depend on where we want to post it and get it out to people. But yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, did anybody have any questions or comments?
You were mentioning a summit between Lincoln and Wells possibly putting on in April. Same question as Kat, would that be open to the public or is that again just for the schools?
I think that one is going to be student focused or like district wide though, but for students, it's going to be like workshops on how to get involved in activism and there's going to be community organizations doing teaching, but I think that's going to be student focused.
Thank you.
Alyssa?
Just to follow up on that, is it going to be for more than just those two school communities? Like, will other students be invited?
Yes, we want it to be district wide.
Cool, that's awesome. And I'd be happy to help process the data if you guys want support on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just realized my name wasn't up there. I'm Molly, or I also go by Bird. I just had a couple comments. I'm happy to help with processing data in May, and I know someone who makes soap, if that's helpful for
Oh my
the
gosh.
sustainable habits I can connect to.
I would love that. We had that down on our list, but we're like, we don't know anyone who makes it. So that would be wonderful.
I'll send an email.
Thank you.
All right, oh, thank you, Shannon. Oh, Alyssa, did you have one more thing?
I just have one more question about this survey. Do you think you're going to add new questions or take questions away?
We did talk about taking some of the more open-ended questions away because if we're aiming to have more responses, it'll just make it more difficult to go through the data. But our overall idea is to keep it all very similar so that we can really accurately compare to last year.
Yeah, great.
Wanted to flag that Murtaza mentioned being able to help process data as well. So thanks everyone for joining in. What I will do to support that is find some time in May just to do some calendar holds to be able to connect with people who want to be on the data processing team and really talk through kind of like what that looks like and just kind of plan it out in advance so that there's just holds and we have to do the calendar scheduling during a very busy time during the school year. So
yeah, thank you, Kat. Well, that concludes our student report.
wonderful, thank you. I think next is the staff report. Does that sound right, Alyssa?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. That's me. So I am Kat Davis. I'm the Climate Justice Advisor at PPS for anyone watching. And I realized that I didn't do introductions at the beginning, but I have with me today to share some updates on the policy, the amazing Carrie and the amazing Bird. So I'll have them introduce themselves real quick. Carrie, do you want to go first?
Sure, it's nice to see everyone again. My name is Carrie Jones Bohara. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Climate Justice Student Projects Coordinator, so I manage the Climate Friendly Public Schools program that PSEF funds, and we'll be talking a bit more about the student projects. It was really nice to hear from Leah and Alma directly, and we'll kind of shed some light on the bigger picture of what's coming in from proposals this year.
And I'm Bird. I also go by Molly. I'm an 8-month AmeriCorps member with the PPS Climate Justice team, so just helping out Carrie and working on some communication stuff, as well as visiting schools for direct support, and super excited about what we're all working on.
Yes, Bird started in December, and we are so incredibly grateful and excited to get to work with them this year. So really, really, really excited about that. So today I'm going to, I will share my screen real quick, and I will be going through our a few just really brief updates on our climate crisis response policy progress, and then we'll do a deeper dive into the student engagement and empowerment side, which is really showing up in our student climate projects this year. So everyone should be able to see my PowerPoint. I think good deal. Excellent. So just to start out, I wanted to do like a really high level progress towards our policy goals. And the first big one that's on everyone's mind is the decarbonization conversation. And I want to be really transparent that in last year during budget cuts, unfortunately, one of our sustainability team members was, their position was reduced in those cuts. And then our amazing energy and sustainability manager found another job. And so we are currently in a little bit of a gap of having staff in this area that are really familiar with the decarbonization roadmap tool that we worked with PAE, New Building Institute, and design to develop. It's a really comprehensive, amazing tool, and we're still really getting familiar with it. So that whole scope wrapped up in like November, right when all this was happening. I say all of that because you will probably ask some very specific questions around exact numbers or emissions or data, and I just wanted to be transparent that I don't have that at the tip of my fingers right now, but I will share with you what I do have. And with the goal of getting that data before the end of the school year, ideally before April when we present. That would be wonderful to get all of that coordinated. That position is posted. The Energy and Sustainability Manager position is posted at PPS. So if you know anyone, please feel free to share that out. It's a really great opportunity to do some, leading the most ambitious climate policy in the country. Like, yeah, tell your friends. It's going to be great. But the high level takeaway, which is really exciting, is that with this roadmap tool, we're able to project out what different climate resilience and emissions reduction projects we can be working on at PPS in different scenarios, and really prioritizing and equity and health and resilience measures while we're trying to reduce emissions, taking into consideration things like deferred maintenance and building age and all of those types of things. It's a very comprehensive tool. And when we did the mapping with the projects up through fiscal year 2025, which ended in July, or yeah, June 30th, of 2025, what we saw was that if we were able to modernize the 3 high schools and modernize them as fully electric, then we actually would, assuming that PGE and Pacific Power meet their grid decarbonization goals, we actually would meet our 2030 goal of reducing our carbon emissions by half by 2030, which is pretty wild and exciting. And we knew we could do it, but that doesn't mean it's not shocking all the same. So we're really excited about that. We have a full report, which I sent out earlier as a PDF and we'll be sharing on the website. That's a really comprehensive overview of the different scenarios. This, I'm sure, means almost nothing to look at because it's a lot of information on a very small screen. But this is an example of how the scenarios are laid out, where it has The schools are color coded by cluster and projects that happen every year to reduce emissions, starting with 2019. And then this red line is the half line, with 2030 being at the very end over here. And this particular scenario includes just uh, electrifying the remaining high schools for modernization. So that's how we get to our goals. And every time we do a new capital project, we are able to update this to be able to see like how it adjusts our decarbonization goals. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so this was just a shout out to the committee. This roadmap tool was something that we were able to fund because of the COVID relief money that schools got, among other things, when we were in a slightly better budget time. And the committee provided a lot of support to the board because there was some concern in passing this contract that we were working with PDAE and others on to create this decarbonization tool. So with the support of the committee, they were able to get this contract passed, and we were able to do this really meaningful work, which is really cool. So it's a great tool, and I think it's a tool that other school districts will be really excited about once we're able to really operationalize it and get that position filled, who will really own the updating of the tool and helping to provide insight on capital projects. So that's exciting. Oh, I see 2 hands raised. Okay. I think we can take some questions and comments after this slide briefly, and then we can go into student projects update, because that's a big update. And then at the end, we'll do like a full questions and comments. So I'll get through the last 2 bullet points real quick, and then we can move on. My climate literacy update is that very big kudos to the Oregon Department of Education for developing a list of existing standards for science, health, and social science that across K-12 that they identify as key for climate literacy learning. This is really exciting. This is the kind of work that at PPS we've been trying to do, and really like having a ton of conversations about like, well, what is considered climate literacy? NGSS, the science standards have climate included, but like what are all the components that go into it? So we're really grateful they provided that. And then when they go in for the next round of climate standards adoptions in 2029, they're starting with science, they'll be able to update the standards with that climate literacy bill in mind. So I wanted to share that since they got those content standards out, I have been able to go through and actually go through all of our recently adopted science curricula and map out where the recently adopted curricula intersects with these standards. And then, so I'll be able to share that soon, which is exciting. And I'm working with our science content leads to think about how to address any gaps there are, where it's like, oh, there's some key standards that maybe we're not teaching because of some different ways that we're able to select what to teach here. So that's a really exciting update. The other exciting part of this update is that because we're now going into an adoption cycle for social sciences, so being able to have those standards just highlighted of like, we should be looking for materials that really teach to these standards is really exciting, because now we can go through the curriculum adoption really proactively looking for things that'll help us meet our goals, versus trying to like retroactively go back and adjust content or supplement materials to be able to like be in alignment with our district goals. So really exciting stuff, in my opinion. And then the last big update in this area is a shout out to Bird, especially because, and then we'll go into the student projects, because Bird was able to get our digital showcase updated with all of our student projects. To my understanding, it should be up to date, and also relaunched our climate justice and sustainability newsletter for a community-facing and a student-facing portion. So, Bird, if you want to share anything about that, I can share my screen because I have those things open as well.
Yeah, I will say the digital showcase is still kind of a work in progress. We're mostly working on making it pretty. And then the newsletter we're hoping will be like a good tool for community members, teachers, parents, all kinds of different groups to learn what's going on with student projects. This is the one I just sent out in January. And then we also have a student-facing newsletter that's a little bit more visually engaging. And we're hoping this is a space where students can see themselves featured and like learn about climate justice in an engaging way. So we're going to be working on getting those out to our parent teacher communities and then also to the student community as well. Oh, and here's a sign up form.
Yeah, I'll share the sign up form as well. And it's linked on the slides, which I'll share an updated version of the slides if people don't have that. Thank you so much. And I wanted to just really quickly share in case anyone's looking for how to find all this stuff. If you go to the Climate Justice Department website, which you can get to by just saying pps.net/climate justice, it automatically reroutes you to the new URL. You can go down here to student projects. You can also go to the Climate Crisis Response Committee page always to find meeting materials. So you'll find all of this stuff. But on the student projects page, there's a new digital showcase area where you can click on it and it takes you to the showcase that has all of our updated projects. So yeah, and then we'll have like the newsletters and whatnot featured there as well. So I wanted to just give major shout outs because that all came together in the last very recently. Like Bird has only been here for I think a month, so just wanted to throw that out there. It's pretty cool stuff. So we can take like 5 minutes for a few questions and then pivot over to yeah, to the student projects updates. Barbie, I saw your hand up earlier, so I wanted to
Sure.
see.
Making work. I'm speaking. Leave it for them and have more later.
Oh no, your audio is breaking up. Ah, I'm so like
Okay.
no.
Can you hear me? No.
A little bit.
Better? Okay, quick. Awesome. Okay, quick question. Yeah, I'm overwhelmed at how amazing, Bird, amazing. You're flying like so high, like crazy high. Okay, this is amazing. Like the curriculum, the content, external facing, internal facing, the visual elements, it's everything. It's amazing. When you mentioned other districts being excited, does this mean that that tool could also be extended to other districts? Could they have a log on? Could rural districts, other administrators, folks without resources have access? What could that mean to really make this a robust tool and maximize its operational content within the state?
That's a really good question. For the decarbonization roadmap tool specifically, I'm not positive how the back end side of it works with the data and how if PAE and those amazing engineers that put it together, how they would feel about like that being an open source tool. I guess we can find out. But I think just when I say like it can provide, I think something neat for other districts, I think it's being able to take a portfolio of aging buildings and the complexities of like, changes to district boundaries and things like that, and being able to say, okay, we've got 50 priorities and no money. How do we phase this in, or how does this look, or how do we think about we've got 50 buildings that have deferred maintenance. How do we prioritize and what's going to be the biggest equity, health, and emissions bang for our buck? And so I think that's the formula that I was talking about being really new and something that we were really struggling just as staff with the limited time and resources on our hands to think through, and what the team that we worked with put together for us is pretty remarkable in terms of like being able to really fine tune different pathways and how it impacts our emissions down the road, depending on different funding stream availability, and being able to even say like, okay, well, this grant is very specifically for these types of communities. How can we actually use this tool to then see the impact? So Yeah, I'm not sure how it would look to like replicate the tool that way, but I think just the kind of theory behind it could be really beneficial for other Oregon schools. And I think for schools that have a smaller portfolio of buildings, it maybe wouldn't be as huge of an undertaking because our speeches have a lot of complexities going on here. So yeah, great question though. I love the idea of expanding it. Alyssa, do you wanna, is there any, I saw your hand up.
I just had a quick question, and I know that this was not your area specifically, Kat. So just in the decarbonization visual that we saw, is that a snapshot in time from last year? Like, so all the data that was like kind of 2025 and before was accurate, and then moving forward, it's okay, projected.
And moving forward, it was a projection based on the anticipated projects given the bond.
Okay.
From what I understand, yes.
Okay. Okay. And was there a delay? There's been a delay on the bond, right? Do we know if we're still, do we have a sense if we're still like going to meet? It looked like we had like a little bit of a cushion for meeting the 2030 goals.
That is not, I'm not
You don't totally.
positive by what you mean by the delay on the bond at this point, but I can look
Oh,
into it for you.
are we on schedule with all, honestly, this is just me not knowing. Is the bond work on schedule from your knowledge?
That's a really good question. From what I understand, the goal is to open all 3 comprehensive high schools by 2029, like fall 2029, which would be a huge undertaking and an amazing feat. So that's from what I understand at this moment. But that is a different kind of, I can look into that further and just kind of keep track on that. So
Gotcha. Yeah, me too. Okay, great. Thanks.
Leah, I saw your hand up too.
I'm not sure if this is something you can answer right now, so we could also do it at the end, but it seems like the electrification of the schools is very dependent on PGE and what they're and like them delivering on their promises. And do you know if they have like I know they have like big goals for like 2030, 2040, and 2050, but have they delivered in the past on any major goals or like their promises to reduce emissions?
That is a really great question. I'm not positive on that, how their progress is going. But this conversation is making me think that it would be helpful to maybe we've talked about having some kind of town hall style things. It might be kind of neat to have some different groups come in and talk about how because you're right, the work that we're pushing towards electrification with the hope that the electric grid becomes more um, uh, decarbonized and has fewer emissions and is overall a healthier source of energy. So that's putting a lot of eggs in that basket. And so, yeah, I think it'd be great to bring in some folks to be able to talk more to it. Does anyone else on this call have more intimate details with how that space has operated? I'm more familiar. I moved here from like Idaho, and I'm more familiar with how their grid is moving forward. And so I'm still learning the different Oregon utility companies, but we'll look into
I
it.
was going to say, so there is a legislative requirement in this case for the electricity utilities. I'm not sure if everyone's clear about that for them to decarbonize. So it's not just like corporate goals that they're setting for themselves. With that said, my understanding is, there is a lot of talk about Oregon's energy strategy right now at the legislature, and I don't think they're on track to meet their goals. And there's a lot of like, it's related to data centers and like grid capacity and some technical things, as well as like ratepayers keeping costs reasonable for ratepayers, et cetera. But yeah, that's more than we need to address here. But I believe there is a risk that they're not going to meet those goals, and so that does have implications for meeting this goal too.
Thank you.
All right, Shannon, what kind of questions you have?
And just really quick, when you were referring to the for the sign up for the climate newsletter and all the great work Bird's been doing, you were showing the climate justice and state sustainability. I thought I heard you say they were going to put a link in the chat. Was that possible to get a link, or I could just look it up later if it's too much
I
extra?
said I would, and then I didn't. So thank you for
That's sorry. I'm one of
No,
those that
you're
need to see
good.
it.
I just realized, like, you're right. I did say that. Yeah, so we can totally do that real quick.
And I know you're doing a million things at once right now, so I appreciate you.
Yeah, I can pop it in the chat. Kat, don't worry about it.
I appreciate that. And for those watching at home, it'll be on our website probably by the time you see this. So yeah.
Thank you.
All right, with all of that, I think we can go over to the student climate projects section, which is going to be way fun. So really excited about that. And after we get through this part, we can, there's more time for discussion. So Carrie, take it away.
Sure thing. So we'll dive into talking about the PPS student-led climate projects for this school year. We'll give a little bit of background about that as we dive in. Kat, can you move that slide forward? Thank you. So we, as many of you know, being local Portlanders, we are partnering with the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund, which is a really unique funding opportunity for our district. A little bit of background here about the initiative that was a ballot measure passed by a large percentage of Portlanders back in 2018, around the same time of all of this great work around the climate action plan and the policy creation and all of that here within the district. And this sales tax on, corporations that have over $1 billion in sales goes back into our community to support these climate action endeavors, one of those avenues being around student-led climate initiatives. So the project categories are listed there, and we can dive into a little bit about what that looks like in Portland. Can you go back one? There you go. That's the one. All right. So this is how it kind of breaks down within the district. The Portland Clean Energy Fund allocated $3 million over 5 years to PPS for these student-led climate projects. And so that works out for each year. K-8 middle school and high schools get $10,000 to implement their student-led projects. And that is a really great way for them to advance part of the climate crisis response policy, especially around student empowerment that Kat was talking about earlier. So we're excited that there's this direct way that students can be engaged in this kind of policy work and putting that policy into action through these projects. So a little bit about how it works within each school. Students are organized in either classes or clubs, or in some cases, like Leah, in both. And they have a student climate project advisor, which we refer to as a SCIPA. Typically, they're a teacher at the school. Sometimes it's another staff member. In a few cases, we've had some community members step up to take on that role to facilitate student groups to develop project ideas, plan out how they're going to implement them, and then help facilitate the process of making it happen. Each school also has site-specific support, so it involves their principals, it involves volunteers, it involves their admin assistants who are working in the office, business managers, a whole range of people at the school site who are helping make contracts happen, helping make sure the projects are approved, helping to make sure students have what they need the day of events, all of those kinds of things. And then our team at the central office is providing a range of supports around resource development, guidance for our student advisors and their teams, coordinating between all the different departments behind the scenes, connecting with our funders, and doing a lot of outreach to community partners. We actually had a great meeting just today with, I think almost 40 plus different community groups that joined us to either engage or learn about the student-led climate project. So really excited to be able to provide that level of support across the district for these. We also wanted to give just a little background on the program timeline because it's a really quick turnaround from, thinking of a project idea, building your team, getting it all together in the fall to essentially writing a grant proposal, putting your whole project together, reaching out to community partners to then, okay, getting your project approved and actually implementing it and then celebrating all that great work. So I know that slide is, there's a lot of words there and you can refer back to it, but I just wanted to give you that big picture. Right now, it's January. We just got project approvals to schools last week. So we're really excited that they can start implementing their visions. We also wanted to give just a little background of kind of how the programs shifted from last year through this year, and highlight, what we achieved in the very first year of the 24-25 projects. There were over 1,500 students that were involved in the design and implementation of those projects, and they engaged over 4,000 of their peers across all of the middle schools, high schools, and K-8s that were involved. They spent over $300,000 and made many different connections with community partners, volunteers, and their school communities. And that image you see on this slide is the cover of our project showcase document, which dives into each of those schools' projects from last year, kind of highlights a quick summary of what each school did and what their kind of outcomes and metrics were. So that's another resource that you can look back at after this meeting. So after the first year, we really reached out to get a lot of feedback about how we could improve the program from our project advisors, from our students, from our admin. And so we got a lot of feedback on what was working well and also where there was room for improvement. And so we took all that and did a lot of work over the summer to streamline some processes and build out supports to make it a little bit smoother for year two. So some of those things involved just a more simplified communication structure, making it really clear who's responsible to communicate for what and to whom, and making that really transparent to our advisors and admin teams. We created a more streamlined contracting process with our contracting and purchasing department to alleviate some of the confusion from our administrators and make sure that our team had a little bit more oversight over that process for this year. We also clarified some role expectations for our advisors, continue to offer advisor support around monthly meetings and one-on-one support. We host office hours every week, so there's always chances for back and forth between advisors. And my favorite is when students show up to those office hours and ask their questions. It's the best. We also have, we've been rolling out some more student supports, especially around the 6-8 level to provide additional adults that can support those grade levels to develop their projects. And administrative supports as well, looking at our budgeting and tracking of receipts. That process was, there were lots of room for improvement there to make it a little easier to track and make sure that our funders got everything they needed for our reconciliation at the end of the year. And then, yeah, just lots of resource development, kind of ongoing, constantly working to improve that and provide resources for our student teams and build out partnerships with community organizations to provide some professional expertise to these groups. And really excited about the volunteer support component. I know that was something, I think one of the first CCRC meetings I joined, there was a lot of energy around how do we engage volunteers. And we're really excited about the partnership we've been building with the Eco School Network to increase that capacity for our middle school students and by connecting them with an adult volunteer that supports the project advisor and their student teams. So it's been really neat in 1 year to see how much has grown just in the project proposals that have come in. So this year, in comparison to last year, we have reported that over 2,700 students have been involved in the planning of these projects, creating those project proposals, being part of the classes, part of the clubs. It's almost doubled. And in their proposals, we asked them, how many students do you anticipate participating in your projects? And they reported that we will have nearly 20,000 students that they anticipate participating in their project activities, which is very exciting. Altogether, 99 unique projects were proposed and approved. They budgeted over $400,000, and we now have 47 student climate project advisors. So the program is already growing just in year 2. Same on the community support level, looking at the community partners directory and the partner packages, which I didn't even talk about, I realize, but we asked our community partners to create a package kind of really showcasing and explaining what services they could offer to students to support their projects, whether that be as a guest speaker, as a field trip, to do project design consultation, whatever it may be, and be able to share that with students so they could really kind of see like a menu of options of how they could plug into the local expertise within our community. So yeah, just very excited around the growth of the program and how much engagement there is already. We also wanted to highlight some of those project proposals. You already heard about Lincoln and Wells, but we're really excited about this collaboration around climate careers, building skills, developing climate advocacy. It sounds like they want to go to Salem again this year, which is very cool. They've got this climate summit that they're working to plan, and we're really excited to see this collaboration across schools. And we've heard from so many students that's such a big desire. And I can't wait to see how that summit shapes up, because I think that's another launching pad for more of that cross-school collaboration, which is very exciting. We also wanted to highlight at the high school level, Grant High School's project. They are planning kind of monthly climate challenges. So each month they have kind of a different theme. Lots of their events are really focused on connecting with the larger community, looking at, hosting community nights, bringing in guest speakers. They're already asking, hey, we want to connect with PSEF. Can you connect us with a speaker from there? And so they're already hitting the ground running. So that was a really exciting one to see come through as well. At the middle school level, some other cool projects, just to give you a little glimpse. Students at Vernon, theirs is really unique. The students that are involved in the climate action projects are part of a leadership class. So it's a few students on each project that they're developing around a climate fair and a STEAM night for their community. They're also doing this really cool partnership with a local farm around regenerative agriculture, doing a field trip, and then buying produce from the farm to then make a community dinner with a local food cart or business to then bring the community together, which is just really cool. And then they also have a plan to do a climate action mural that will then be displayed and unveiled at their STEAM night. So they have this kind of integration of projects that's really neat. And then one project at Odyssey is a really cool one too, around estuary explorers. So they kind of have a whole theme around thinking about climate resilience really localized within the Lower Columbia. And they've partnered with the Lower Columbia Estuary Partnership and are looking at doing some hands-on learning, model building, going on field trips, really, and connecting it to their whole school. So we're just excited to see all of the new ideas that are coming out of all of the schools and student groups. We're really excited for them and are just can't wait to support them make their visions a reality. So just to kind of wrap up, thinking about how we make these projects accessible and meaningful, making sure that we're supporting student-led spaces as we are there to support their process. A lot of that is through that resource creation, kind of continually using their feedback to make it more student-friendly, to make sure that students can access it without help from an adult, all of those pieces. Really building out these partnerships and doing that matchmaking between community groups and students' ideas and seeing where there's synergy. And then, continuing to build those ecosystems of support, whether that's, through those community partners or those adult volunteers that are at their school or, whatever those pieces are to make sure that they're able to lead and plan and make their projects happen. So that's really where we see our role. Yeah, so our website, we're very excited to have our updated website that you can kind of check out some of these details, and you can always reach out to us and ask any questions or get connected in the future.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing so we can have a more face-to-face discussion, but yeah, questions, comments, enthusiasms. I see Barbie has her hand up.
Well, I'll try to remain less enthusiastic so I don't blow out my speakers, Carrie. It was absolutely amazing. I'm over the moon. And, I'm a parent who has volunteered, been a community partner, brought one of the first groups to do a tour of the bridge and an ethnobotanical hydrology tour of Vanport and the confluence and the bridge and how do all those things fit together, right? So I'm a big fan of place-based learning, layering. How do we integrate all of those things? So, you've hit the mark and knocked it out of the park. And I just had a question about Vernon and their climate action mural. Wondering if they're also partnering with Metro. Would love to connect because they have recycled paints, low VOCs, and I do have a connection, and I'm sure that they would be more than happy to make donations of as much paint because we had previously talked about starting a mural program for high school kids, and they had already committed. They said, Barbie, get the staff and we'll give you the paint. So you just let me know where and when to get it delivered.
Amazing. Well, we can definitely loop back around paint donations or any other things like that. I don't know if they've made that connection yet with Metro Paint. Alma made some amazing resources last summer when she was working with us in the Climate Justice Department around local businesses and options for students kind of trying to source materials for their projects, which is very exciting. So that could be something there as well. And yeah, I'm excited. The Vernon artist, I think they're working with an artist that's worked at a few different schools before and also teaches breakdancing. So very cool.
Yeah, Metro Paint is on the sustainable materials list that I worked on. But I'm so glad you mentioned them because they do have a really cool program.
Alyssa?
Yeah, it's like it's hard to not have so many wonderful things to say. Thank you so much for sharing both the highlights and then also some of the details of the projects and just how much has grown in the year. I'm sure there's so many lessons learned and how exciting to be part of it. I was wondering about any is there any formal data collection on pre and post for different projects or is there anything that's kind of all funneling together from each of the projects? I know they're all so different, but what is that looking like?
Yeah, I think last year, I don't know how much was developed around that, but this year that's actually going to be part of our topic at our next meeting with our project advisors around tracking metrics and kind of thinking through that process of, whether that's capturing a before and after or trying to track, volunteer hours spent or number of plants planted or whatever that is that connects with their project. To help, we've created some tools to help with that process. But that is a good question to think about. Some of that is reported through the end of year report that gets submitted to our grantors, right, to our funders. But maybe that's also something that our team can discuss around how we want to collect that information and how that might be useful and connected to kind of some of the policy goals.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Thanks.
And then Leah, if you want to jump in.
Thank you, Carrie. I really liked that presentation too, and I loved hearing about the middle schoolers because I didn't know the projects that were going on there. And I was just wondering if I could have the information for the next group session, or like where to find the information for next group session.
Are you referring to the monthly meetings?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we host those with the project advisors. So so that piece is not with student groups, but student groups can certainly come to our office hours if there are questions. And if you are like, "Oh, what's that about?" Talk to your project advisors because they should have all of that information to be able to give to you.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I think I meant the office hours. I'll talk to my advisor about that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
office hours, next ones, they're usually on Mondays.
Okay.
And the next one I believe is Monday at 3:30. So you could come.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make some space for Leah Warner or Taza. We haven't heard much from you tonight, and just wanted to make sure there was space in case there was some people need more space, which I understand, no pressure, but just if there's any reactions or questions, comments, concerns, inspirations, ideas around the kind of staff update before we move on to the next topic.
I've been dropping stuff in the chats.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was just curious. These projects are so amazing. But how are there I know at the beginning of the meeting there was mention about the two high schools kind of collaborating together on a summit. Are there official avenues to help facilitate cooperation between all these different projects around the district? Because I'm sure a lot of these projects can easily kind of feed off each other.
Yeah, that's definitely something we hope to help facilitate. There's a lot of interest in students wanting to connect with one another. The student showcase is definitely one avenue for that. Although timing wise, it's not quite at the beginning of the implementation phase. It's more of a sharing with the ideas of kind of inspiring one another and maybe connecting around a future project like for the fall. So there are some avenues there. I have had a few advisors reach out to me around kind of making connections from school to school. So we do a little bit of that, but I'd be open to ideas around how we can build more of those kind of cross-school partnerships as well. I think there could be interest. And one thing we've discussed is kind of now that projects have been approved is doing a little bit of cohorting, at least within our monthly meetings to connect advisors that have similar projects so that they can, between the advisors, they can share ideas and bring that back to student groups and kind of build out the collaborations from there. That's part of how that kind of communication structure works too, is that, we at the office kind of connect mostly with the advisors who then connect with students.
I wanted to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add on to that too, and just share that something that's really cool that we've also seen is some middle schools going and wanting to present to elementary schools, or high schools wanting to present to middle schools or engage them in some way. So where would love to see the program grow is to really have those kind of cluster based kind of ecosystem connections between projects, especially as the program continues. You'll get the middle schoolers doing it now in high school and getting to kind of like hopefully keep that continuity going. And then another neat thing is that since we're working with Eco School Network, they are already really active in quite a few elementary schools. And so they're able to kind of like bring some of that continuity too. So just it's emerging and we're just really it's just exciting to see how it's naturally growing, but definitely want to think about how to more strategically, like intentionally do some of that matchmaking because there's so much abundance and just really cool to get to see different school communities get to work together.
Yeah, that just sparked some of my own memories of just, some of the projects that are doing some of those collaborations, whether it's, within our K-8s and connecting with some of the younger students and bringing them into their projects, but also, another example is like McDaniel and Roseway Heights are connecting around like climate fairs and McDaniel students going to the event hosted at the middle school and then sharing kind of what they are doing of their projects. So there is some of that happening. But yeah, I think we're excited to see that build and grow.
Thank you. That's really good to hear.
I was just going to throw out there that it could be as low tech as a whiteboard that, or something. I'm looking at Bird. I'm like, Bird could probably solve this in a day. But just something that's, shared between the group. So once you're joined in the group, maybe it's a link for a whiteboard or an idea board to get the juices flowing. And so you start seeing things like in those areas of transportation decarbonization, or what are in those areas like, ooh, I have an idea, like a monthly bike clinic. And, we teach people how to fix their bikes or, whatever that looks like. And people go, oh, I have that idea too. We could work together. Maybe it just looks as simple as that, just giving access. Sometimes it's just access.
Thank you for sharing that, Barbie. I recently remembered that like Canva has that kind of like digital whiteboard space that we can use. And as a district, we use that tool. So that's an interesting idea. I like it. Thank you. I'll keep the ideas coming. Any other thoughts before we move on to the final portion of today's meeting? We're just really excited to keep sharing these updates and keep an eye on those digital projects. You can kind of see all the different ones, but I think just wanted to just give major kudos and celebrations to the work that Carrie's been doing since she got here because 100% of schools applied, 100% of projects approved by January 12th. Hugely different experience. So excited to see just the amount of enthusiasm and then just feeling of doability after just a year of lessons learned and listening and then really like working real hard to get these resources made. It's been a sprint. So just wanted to give some kudos and, appreciation for the whole community coming in and, lifting up these projects. It's really cool. All right. Well, our next topic, Alyssa, if you're cool with it's kind of transitioning because it's an interesting one to approach. But Alyssa and I were reached out to by Melissa Lim, who's heading the district AI governance committee, and asked if this committee would like to be involved in or provide feedback on or thought partnership on the district's AI policies that we're developing. So as background, I guess, on AI. It's emergent, quickly happening rapidly, where our students and staff and teachers are just having more and more access to different AI tools and open AI tools like ChatGPT. Google uses AI now. Anytime you do a Google search, it comes up with an AI automated response. And there's a lot of different avenues and tools out there for people to be engaging with this. And there's a lot of pros and cons, let's say, around the ability, like engaging with it. And so knowing that we need to be developing some kind of protocol or practice around what staff to help guide staff in our own like use of it, like when is it appropriate, when is it not appropriate, being really careful with data, and then also making sure to provide clear guidance to instructors or teachers. How do they approach this with students? And then also for our students of like, how do we make sure that AI literacy is really clear and that we can differentiate between when we're talking to a human and a robot on the computer and identifying what's real. And from the perspective of this committee, the elephant in the room is the huge impact on the environment that data centers have, the amount of water that they use, electricity that they use in our communities, knowing that these are things that we need to make sure our students are prepared to engage with, but also want to be really responsible when we're thinking about the impact that these tools have on our world, just like everything else we talk about with climate, being able to make that discernment. So wanted to bring this topic to the committee for conversation and then kind of gauge some interest on people who might want to participate in those governance committees or have thoughts or resources or what have you. I saw Shannon raise your hand. You raised it first and then Alma.
Yes, hello. So I just went on Wednesday night. I go to Science on Tap and I go to Science Pub at OMSI. Anyway, there's a lot of AI happening. Few things I recently, and I'm not an AI expert, so I do want to say that I'm just still learning. But Dr. Jackie Wurz, who used to be at OHSU and now runs a nonprofit, Link Oregon, which I believe is her own sort of AI or more accurately machine learning process. Within that speech, there was some covering of the environmental impact. Of course, we know in Eastern Washington right now, there's a lot happening. They're asking to use water from Mount Hood because I believe, I don't remember which small city along the gorge is refusing more water to Google because they need it for their city. But regarding specifically for in the schools, Tigard Tualatin, AI Use Spotlight, AI Guidance and Education is one of the best in the nation, is being seen as guidance for AI use in education. Again, I'm just reading off notes I took from a meeting. I'm not an expert in this, but Tigard Tualatin just down the road. And then OSU has created a new Bloom's taxonomy to include AI. So if you're familiar as a teacher with Bloom's taxonomy, that's my contribution from the meeting I was just at. And those are local resources, OSU, Tigard Tualatin, and then again, Dr. Jackie Wurz was she is actually the main speaker moderator for the Science on Tap, but possible resources.
Thank you. Any and all resources are super helpful. We appreciate it. Alma, what were your thoughts? What are you thinking?
There you go. Yeah, there's been actually a lot in my school's climate club. There's been a lot of interest in this. We're actually holding the school having an assembly and we have a portion of it and we are going to devote that time to talk about this and talk about resources with students. So I do have a lot to say about this, but the main thing that I wanted to express was that as I was creating this presentation, we wanted to have actionable items at the end. And so I was looking into ways to turn off the AI overview on Chrome, which automatically comes up when you search something on a school Chromebook. And then I was also looking at alternative browsers, such as Ecosia, which does still use AI, but in a much more climate conscious way, and it is B Corp certified. But as I was looking into this, I tried to install it on my own computer and realized that every single AI blocking extension for Chrome is blocked by the district, as well as Ecosia as a search browser is blocked by the district. So I didn't know if like everybody else knew this, but that was very frustrating to me. I don't know why it's blocked. And so I can still do it on my home computer, but on the district device in my district account, I was not able to block the AI overview or shift to a different browser. And that was very frustrating for me. So I was wondering if, since Kat, you're closer to the district, you might be able to look into that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. And it's probably one of those like automated if this then that kind of things. And so if we bring it to the attention of someone, I'm sure that they'll be able to help understand kind of like how to make those decisions, or if there's like um an extension that is approved for district use with privacy settings, or if we can find one that we're able to approve. I think that's a great idea. I didn't even know that they had those extensions, so appreciate you looking into that. All I know so far is that on Pinterest you can select to have none of your feed be AI generated, and I'm like, cool, that's a good start for me. But this is really helpful to know. Yeah, would anyone be interested in kind of hearing more about this, or that the Melissa offered to potentially come to one of our meetings to talk about it, and then also has invited any climate crisis response committee members to come to their meetings. So if you're interested, just let Alyssa and I know and we can coordinate. But I know they're trying to get through this policy and guidebook before the end of the school year, so things are moving forward on it.
I'm very interested. I'll say that out.
I think it'd be so great to have Melissa join us, just that maybe we could have a full conversation with them. I'm also just wondering about like tracking of our usage of AI at our district, and if if that would be, I think that would be worthwhile. We can't understand what we don't track.
Yeah, Leah.
Sorry, just to clarify, we're saying we're interested in going to a meeting. Which meeting?
Oh, just it's just kind of gauging interest on folks that might be interested in either having Melissa from our AI governance committee attend one of our meetings and provide an update about where the district's at and get some feedback, as well as she's invited the committee, anyone in the committee who might be interested, to one of the AI governance meetings. Because this isn't something that's explicitly covered in our climate crisis response policy, actually. And our policy doesn't technically account for the emissions of life cycle emissions of products. And so that's something that we're not necessarily tracking, which I think this would fall under that category, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be mindful and thinking about the spirit of the policy as we're approaching these things. And also, Eddie Wong mentioned that there might be opportunity to add things to the policy or make some adjustments or amendments given how things have changed in the last few years already. So just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, that's the meetings that we're talking about. And I'll send the specific dates as like a follow-up and include those in the meeting notes. And people can kind of think about it and let me know. But just kind of wanted to get a general gauge of interest.
Thanks. I'm definitely interested in that.
Yeah, Murtaza?
Yeah, I think as a committee, I think this falls under our purview to examine this deeper. Like you mentioned, there are very known environmental impacts to this technology. And as Jane was mentioning earlier, PGE is very likely not going to meet their commitments, in part because of the impact of data centers. So it very clearly has an impact on the work that we are trying to promote.
Thank you for sharing that perspective. I had that thought had crossed my mind as well when we were hearing that update, if those were related, and I'm sure it's all related. So thank you for sharing that. Let's see. Shannon, I saw your hand go back up. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, definitely the environmental impact is a major concern. I'm sure PPS is already looking over this a bit, which doesn't fall exactly under us. But then, of course, with AI double-pronged with FERPA and student privacy. Of course, that's not our immediate agenda, but if we're having to convince others of the environmental impact, FERPA is definitely going to be a back pocket bringing up as well, possibly.
Yeah, that's a good,
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point, and something that the district is considering and provided initial guidance on around not using it at all. And I think where the feedback is really desired right now is kind of confronting with like, okay, there's all these tools available. It's really hard. Like, how are we even defining AR right now because it's everywhere? So how do we provide guidance for staff, teachers, and students to be really responsible and intentional with how we're engaging with these tools? So I think that is where um, being able to look at the scope of everything and say like, okay, these are the the real risks and impacts of this technology when you engage with it regularly, and here's the impact of engaging with it regularly. If the district is going to allow use of it at all or teaching about it, then how do we make sure that we provide some real clear guidelines about like what is an appropriate use of this, and how do we help people make the best decisions and operate with the least harm possible? Um, so yeah, it's kind of an interesting time when we're on a technological revolution shift. It's exciting, it's a cusp, but I'm grateful that we are able to have spaces like this to think somewhat proactively as much as we can. Like it's already here, but like as much as we can about how we engage with it. Um, you know, I think that'll be helpful at least.
Yeah, it's not going away, but as you said, responsible is the key word there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just being mindful, yeah, and being aware, just like when we're talking about any kind of climate action work, we don't want to blame and shame for people doing small individual actions and behaviors, but we can also provide the like context and the impact and the community approach to make the best choices with the least harm possible, and just knowing that everything is complex. So that's kind of the it'll be curious to see how we're able to capture that complexity in a guidebook, but I think that we're just even having these conversations is a really good start. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left. Good job, everyone, getting through things. Alyssa, what's on your mind for action items, next steps?
Yeah. Well, thanks for like facilitating that discussion. And it seems like clearly everybody seems like fired up and excited to talk about it. So hopefully we can bring Melissa in and also have folks go to those working group meetings. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on and amplify what Kat said that Eddie Wong passed down to us. And Eddie is our school board liaison. And I'm sure everybody knows that, but just for the folks at home. So our policy, the climate crisis response policy is, I guess, 4 years old, and every 4 years they have a practice of sending them into the school board committee that then reviews and updates the policies. So Eddie has like suggested that it move to that committee. It sounds like they have quite a backlog of policies that they're looking at, but I do think it's a great opportunity for, I mean, one, for the policy to step into the 2026 era and also to deal with some of these issues we're talking about, and then also for us to incorporate some of the feedback that we heard from the engagement that happened last year, and then also like, you know, all of the learnings from some of the PSEF projects and the students that are more engaged. I do think it'll be like good time for that review, and I think that our committee can provide, you know, at least some of that support, and then also bringing in folks to those committee meetings. I don't know. I assume that those are open committee meetings. If anybody has that, I see nodding of heads. Great.
Yeah, those are all public meetings.
Great. Yeah. So he wasn't able to come because I think he had a conflict for this meeting, but hopefully he'll be here for the next one. And it's like fortunate that he's making the time. So yeah, our action items. I'll like look through all of my notes and pull out a few pieces that we can share with the board. We're going to work on those YouTube notes. We can make sure we've got, and then yeah, for our next meeting, which I think is one of our kind of interim meetings that we have scheduled. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but I think we had a topic that we thought we would discuss, Kat.
Yeah, there's a I just have a hold. I don't know that I've shared this hold with anyone, so you might not have it on your calendar. For February 11th, was one of the like not arbitrary, but somewhat just put it on the calendar dates as like an in-between quarterly meetings because after January it goes by very quickly. So we can keep that on the calendar, and that I think I'd hoped that we would be able to talk about modernizations or decarbonization when we first started scheduling all these meetings. I'm not, I don't feel like we're going to have a new energy and sustainability person, or that it would be fair to ask them to present here by then, since it's just in a few weeks. But I can reach out to our bond, our Office of School Modernization folks that manage the bond to be able to provide some updates there if they're available for that as an option. And I can also see if someone like Melissa or someone from the AI governance committee is available to come to that meeting as an option as well. So if I was mostly curious if folks would like to keep that on the calendar, because we talked about adjusting it if needed. And then if so, if those sound like good topics to try and really hone in on. I could also ask our transportation guy to come talk about our electric buses. That's an exciting update. Like there's all sorts of things we can talk about. So I was trying to think about like what's kind of top of mind for the committee as we move into the reality that if we're presenting on April 14th, then March 31st would be when the end of year report would be due.
Yeah, what's the process for generating that end of year report?
That's a really great question. In the past, it has been a few committee members that have taken the option to draft something using a template that we've used in, or I keep saying we, I am but a facilitator here, but that the committee has used in the past, and preparing basically feedback on progress towards goals or recommendations for the district, things that are going well, things that could be improved, and then being able to bring that draft to a committee meeting and work on it together to be submitted. Does that sound accurate? I realized I answered that, but it was probably more of a, yeah, Barbie, Alyssa, Jane question. Cool. Perfect. And I think with it, the pro of the end of year report coming in April is that it's before the budget has been decided at PPS. Historically, this committee has presented the very last board meeting of the school year. So school students are gone. It's nice because it's relaxed, but also like decisions have already been made. And so there's that positive aspect of being able to just kind of be, well, there's like a lot of energy in the space. The cons being that you obviously don't have a full year of work to look at. And so it could even be just like a calendar 2025 report or something, things that the committee can discuss. But yeah, I don't know that that was a helpful answer to your question of process, but it's there's multiple ways, I think.
No, that was helpful. Thank you.
Jane, feel free to jump in. I saw your hand up.
I was just going to say, I feel like, I don't know, maybe Alyssa, you have something in mind, but having worked on that in previous years, I think Alyssa, maybe, did you lead it, the drafting of our report last year?
I think Barbie.
Okay.
Work on, yeah.
It seems like the sooner we identify the folks that want to lead that, the better, even if it's just like sketching out an outline or like preparing yourself mentally that like, you know, for your volunteer hour allocation that you're going to be needing to work on that at some point. That's helpful because it is like just around the corner really from a volunteer perspective, I'd say. So thanks for asking that question, Murtaza.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm happy to take it on. I feel like has been the chair's kind of role to spearhead it, but and with support from other folks. Absolutely.
Seems like it's great to especially be able to obviously engage with the students here on our committee in writing something. I know the students, Alma and Tess, were really involved last year in writing the report and reviewing it. And so perhaps if you're interested, oh, thanks, Leah, you can reach out, and maybe that can be one of the things we send with the meeting minutes, is just like, if you're interested in getting involved with that, to reach out to you, Alyssa, and then you can kind of coordinate.
Great. Yeah, that's perfect. Are there any last thoughts before we sign off? All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Kat, and thanks, Carrie. Thank you, and Bird. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for participating in this. I'm really grateful to everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Here, everyone.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Good job, team.
Nice job, Kat. Nice job, Bird.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Nice to get the feedback from the committee. So that's good to hear.